Call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clock gets switched again.
I'm looking into if it's a battery or whatever.
But it's right on, only an hour behind.
Might be the daylight
That's
thing.
right.
It might be on East West Coast time or something.
Well, somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
We'll move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Somebody would like to make the motion to up to the previous minutes or make a motion?
Minutes look good. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment. Earl, are you back there? Or is that Tess?
Yeah, Carol's on the corner.
She's out of view of everything.
Yeah, I see her back there. It's hard to know if she's here or not. Well, don't look like we got any public comment. We don't have any appointments, so it looks. Consent agenda.
So you
is
need a
kinda-
motion to adjourn.
Can I have 5 more minutes, please? Okay, consent agenda. Looks like we got nothing there to discuss. We don't have to approve anything there, do we? I don't see. We'll go right into action items.
It's not here.
Well, he's in the,
He's right across the hall though.
Here we'll go on. That's the one we can't do it there.
Both, yeah, that's the two things.
Third one is Carol.
She just left.
I missed the adjournment.
I tried.
There's,
We can go down and do some discussion.
Yeah,
There,
right.
Brian.
easier.
there you go.
Go from one table to right up to the front of the next.
Morning.
Morning.
We'll start with action items. Number 1, consider approving projects and costs related to improving crosswalks and 2 intersections on County 6 in the present. On the past projects, the county covered 50% of the construction costs. The city of La Crescent will pay for the design and the maintenance. Brian,
Yeah, so a few months ago, it came to the board right after the city of La Crescent and La Crescent School District did a survey regarding 2 crosswalks or 2 intersections in La Crescent. They're Elm Street, which is our county stated Highway 6, as it intersects with South 4th and South 6th Street. The school and city applied for some money and got some funds to do a demonstration project in the town. With that, they did some painting on the roadways. They put bollards up out there. Got the survey, got feedback from 200 and some individuals. The survey had mixed results. Some people liked the results of the demonstration project. Some people absolutely hated it. So we had a Safe Routes to School meeting about a month ago. And at that meeting, we talked about these intersections. Both the school and city wanted to see something get done. And we talked about, how can we take the survey results, the feedback gathered from that, along with all the design and the work involved with the consultants and the safety planning side of things, and figure out a solution that does not impact traffic as much, but still create some of the same benefits for the crosswalk. So about a week and a half ago, Commissioner Walter and Severson met with me out in La Crescent with the school and the city at these 2 crosswalks or these 2 intersections. And we talked about what can be done to make this intersection or these intersections be improved. The discussions kind of mirrored what happened when we had the Safe Routes to School meeting of could we have the push button activated red flashing beacons out there, and have curb extensions on the west side of Elm Street only where it impacts the parking lanes, not the bike lane or through streets. Back the curb bump outs on the city streets so it doesn't affect the turning movement as much, and try to figure out that hybrid of an improvement. The Bill Waller was going to go to the city of La Crescent council last night. I haven't heard the results of that, but what he was going to ask for was to start the design for the city to pay for 100% of the design cost. County split the construction cost 50-50 for any cost above and beyond what they can find for grants. So they're going to pursue Safe Routes to School grants, transportation alternative funding grants, ARPA funds was mentioned. Trying to figure out some ways to pay for the construction portion. One of the county would be willing to allow the project to happen and pay for 50% of the remaining costs, which be at most, we're anticipating about $40,000 for the county share. So I don't know if either one of you two want to speak on that.
I did attend the meeting last night and they authorized the engineer to draw up plans, and so that part is being taken care of already. I have not heard anything about grants, the apps. I'm sure that's the next step.
Could you explain to me, somebody, South Fourth and South Sixth?
Yes.
The north side of the elementary school
Yeah,
is Fourth Street, South Fourth Street. And then down 2 blocks down is South Sixth, just a corner of where, well, it's the food shelf is there currently. There used to be a grocery store there back in the 60s, but that's basically the north and south
I know where it is,
extremes of.
but is this bump outs
It's on the county road.
into Elm?
Yeah, so it's in Elm, so on the, so Elm Street, if you go from east side to the school side to the west side, you have 6-foot bike lane, 12-foot through lane for traffic going northbound, 12-foot lane going southbound, 5-foot bike lane, which in the future that'll become a 6-foot bike lane. Then there's about 8 feet, I think it's 8-foot parking lane on the side. What happens is the traffic going southbound, they may stop either for someone in the crosswalk or to make a left turn. The cars going by southbound will drive through the bike lane and the parking lane to scoot around the vehicle that's stopped. So there's been some near misses with pedestrians.
That was my
crossing.
example.
So they want to
Yeah,
extend the curb out so people can't scoot around through that bike
On
and
the right
parking
side.
lane on the west side.
So South Seventh, the corner that you take to go down by the pool,
Mhm.
does not have bump outs.
Does not.
South Sixth and South Fourth, does South Third have bump outs?
No.
I
On
mean,
the west side, there's a minor one, but that does not affect County 6.
Yes,
Right.
South Third, the west side, just the city
right.
like.
so that intersection has it on the west side. These are gonna be on the,
West side.
so it's not gonna bump out into County Highway.
It would
No.
bump out into the parking lane on our county highway.
County Highway runs north and south.
Correct.
Yes.
Mhm.
So when you say the west side, is that the
Away
west
from-
side of the intersection?
Yes.
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 I'm confused by north, south, east, west.
Oh,
West
That's-
side
that's my
of, west
problem.
side of Elm.
Yeah, so the west side.
There it
so-
is. Perfect.
So
Thank
this is the
I was looking for
original
that.
map. I think this
Yeah.
was in the commissioner's
We
packet.
got it in
So
our packet too.
the original plan had, on the east side of the highway had bump outs into the city streets. It did not bump out into Elm Street.
Right.
That has been eliminated, so they won't do anything there. So traffic can turn onto those streets, onto the highway easier without crossing into the center, crossing over the center line. On the west side of Elm, they want to do the bump outs into Elm Street through the parking lanes, along with into the side streets. Now, what we talked about is, not going extreme on the Elm side, so we don't start impacting the bike lane. And this radius and the impact onto the city street may be cut in half of what the original width was.
Right.
So vehicles can make that turning movement to get off and onto the highway easier without having those bump outs being affected.
So they aren't gonna be the extreme bump outs.
No.
Yeah, there'll be, yeah.
Does
there'll
that
be
mean you're gonna have
like-
deliveries to the school and whatnot?
Yeah, so the ones moving to the school, it'll be that side, they won't have the bump outs. On the west side, which isn't school, it's primarily residential traffic using those roadways, they would have some bump outs, but not nearly as much traffic. You don't have the buses going down that way. Elms or South Six, besides for that being on the south side of the school, that's the area that they cross going over the pool during the summer as well. For kids.
So my question is this then, why do we have the bump outs at all if you're gonna put up those LED flashing lights like you see by Luther, by Gunderson? That's the control. If you see the flashing light and there's people at the intersection, you gotta stop them.
Not everyone uses that. And by having the bump outs, it does bring those, you can bring that light closer and it also shortens down that crosswalk distance. So we didn't talk about, that's one option.
I
is to
understand the
just put-
shortness of the distance, but
Yeah, we did talk, that's one option is we could do just the lights and not the bump outs. Now, the streets, I think it's 45 feet wide here. So if a bump out's 4.5 feet, you cut down that crossing time by 10%. So, people get across the street quicker. You can see that person because they're standing on the edge of the curb. In front of the other curb line, you don't have the tree, the fire hydrant, the other stuff, so you can see that individual standing there easier too, by having the bump out. But that's definitely an option. That's one that we did talk about is at minimum, maybe just the push button activated beacons is a decent starting point. Now, I think the city would go along with it if they had to, but it's not their preferred option. Preferred option is to bump it out on that one side.
Just bump outs were the kind of the compromise that they were, well, I'd call them extreme last year. We kind of cut them about halfway back, so it's, maybe a little bit wider than this. That's gonna be the bump out versus where it used to be way out to here, the whole parking area. So about half of the parking lane, as I call it, is gonna be affected. And it's gonna be with a B curb, so if worse come to worse, you can get over it. I think it was a B curb they agreed to. Did they stay with the A?
Yeah, I don't know. We talked about the curve maybe.
Well, that can be discussed as the plan comes, but at first didn't like them at all because of the equipment to get around to
They're
there,
not popular.
But to compromise, we came down to this lesser
Yes.
intrusion into it and only on the one side. So it'll affect the people who are going south from Third and Elm towards the pool area, if to give us reference. And it minimizes the chance of somebody trying to pass on the right. We've put up the signs a few years ago, no passing on the right and all, didn't do any good. And what was happening, people would be making a left turn or stopping for the pedestrian, doing the walk, and the impatient person in the back didn't see it. Off they go. And so I'm using this as a compromise personally, but
Yeah.
I look at what happened on South Third. and how hard it is to get around those bump outs. It's a nuisance as far as using the charge.
By the four-way stop.
coming west
Yeah,
eastbound.
those are-
on-
those are-
on Third.
Yeah, those are
Eastbound
pretty
for-
extreme
Yeah,
there.
Briars
And
there.
that's where we talked about both
Oh, you're-
flattening out
you're
the
on north.
radius. and
Okay, okay.
The
Because you
distance.
can't, if you got it, you can with a truck or something, make stoplight.
Okay.
If this is your recommendation, I was just questioning, I look at Gunderson and how heavy the traffic is on that street and they get by with
Just flashers.
just the flashers.
Now, they do have, at Gunderson, they have the flasher down the middle of the street too, rather than just on the two sides.
Yeah.
But like I said, that was definitely an option we talked about, was just put the flashers out there. Now I go through that South Third all the time. About half the people, I don't think it's 2/3, maybe half the people use the button, half don't. So just because the lights aren't blinking doesn't mean that someone's not crossing.
That's true.
Someone crossed in front of me just last night when it was dark outside with the dog. without pushing the button and stuff. And it's like, well, there's someone there. So they don't always get used. But people that want to use them can and do that.
Fits with your budget? For the
Um,
county to pay 40,000?
Yeah, so right now we don't have anything in the budget, so it's either, fund balance, come up with some type of grant or budgeting for a future year. I did tell the city that we don't have anything budgeted for 2022. So we do need to come up with something, if they want to do it in 2022.
Would this be a qualified ARPA expenditure?
Yes.
They mentioned that, probably would be. I haven't dug deep enough to make sure that it would be. If they pursue these other funding sources for grants, they won't get that funding and get it built this year. So it might be a 23 or 24 project.
Why do we need to approve it now?
To give them the go ahead to do the
We don't want
engineering.
them to spend a bunch of money on design to have us come back and say, no, we're not going to allow it on because it is Elm Street or county highway. We don't want to.
So we're just going to approve the intent of us to pay 50%,
Right,
but the amount will be determined later.
yes.
Once everything is done with the design and bid out, yeah.
And grants are taken care of.
Grants, yeah. And hopefully we can get that, if we can get the cost cut in half or maybe even.
So then,
20% of
but
that.
then you'll come back then with the amount
Come back with the final approval.
and the final approval, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Can we make this approval not to exceed?
Of course, we've seen what happens with estimated.
I know. That's why I say not to exceed.
Well,
Well, your estimate was 40, right?
And that was a number that was pulled out of thin air in the field, just trying to make some assumptions. The tough part right now with this year with everything is the costs have
Well,
jumped so much.
see,
So we're kind of making some assumptions on, what's gonna, right now, the biggest factor is we don't know what's gonna happen with the push button activated beacons. The availability of that and the price of that, the concrete, we have a lot better idea of what's happening with that for cost. Those beacons, we don't know if those prices have gone up 15% or if they've doubled.
I'd be more comfortable with not the limit to exceed, because we could be agreeing to something that it's a lot more than we thought it was gonna be.
Put in here not to exceed 40,000
Or 50,
or 50, one of the two.
Well,
and allocated out of the funding from ARPA so that we have it
Yes.
dedicated?
Yes,
I'd be more comfortable with 40, but
That's fine. Carol, you see a problem with doing that? Just dedicating that? Okay. I think it's your district, so.
yeah,
Well, I move to approve the looking into and planning the improvements on County 6, at the intersection of 4th and intersection of 6th. So,
Any limited money you want to put in there?
excuse me,
Any,
not to exceed 50,000. I'm gonna throw that in.
With the anticipation it's coming out of ARPA funds.
Correct. That's my
I'll
intent,
second
is the plan is for sure.
okay, we got a motion and a second to go along with these projects. All in favor, say aye.
Just a second,
Whoop, time out.
reiterate the fact that it's anticipated ARPA funds not to exceed 50,000.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. So we are going to use ARPA funds up to the amount of $50,000 for this project.
intent, yes.
Intent is. That all right?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, you're all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 2, consider awarding a low bid for the SAP 028-612-014. The project is a bridge replacement on County 12, half a mile west of Prairie Road.
So this is as I said, it's a big culvert replacement. It's a 12-foot wide culvert. Replacing with a new culvert that'll be a 12-foot by 8-foot box. We had 4 bidders. The low bid was Minimal Construction. the bid of $231,749.77. Our engineer's estimate was $172,204.60. So we're at almost 60,000 over our estimate. But when you compare this to the other bids, we do think that it's constructible within that budget, and we don't see a benefit of rejecting all the bids and rebidding it at this point. We've been told that getting the box culvert for construction in 2022 might be difficult for this year, so it might ultimately get built in 2023, but either way, the contractor will be locked into the prices that they bid. So we would, hopefully we can get it built in the fall. But either way, we get a contract in place and then we can go ahead and build when the materials available.
Well, the biggest thing I see was the box culverts almost doubling. And that's where a lot of the difference came in, and a couple other expenses, but once we get this locked in, this is the price.
How big are galvanized culverts do they make?
Well, the one that's being replaced is, I believe, a 12-foot by 7.5-foot arch pipe. But the cost of those have skyrocketed as well. So, to reject the bids and try to go to metal, it's not going to be a benefit to us, unfortunately.
They don't make giant,
Galvanized.
no, they don't make the giant, you know how you put the liner in.
They-
It's like the culvert, there is no 12-foot liner as far as the culvert is concerned.
No, it's not cost effective to line it once you get over 48 inches. Yeah, I mean, they make 3-sided galvanized where they don't even have a bottom in it, but they can make them, probably 30+ foot across.
So what do you put in the bottom?
But
Nothing, they're false bottom. There's,
usually
it's like a
just
bridge.
Soil and,
Liner
like
rock,
a bridge where you put them on a footing on the sides, or you can have, full where they cover the bottom, but you can, I don't know if they make them a whole lot bigger than the 12-foot with the bottom minimum.
Something to interest. Well, anybody got any more questions? Somebody want to entertain a motion to go ahead with this project?
I know when I was looking at it in the packet, I had to squint really hard to
I
try
know.
to figure out what those numbers were.
Me too, I thought, you can't make that any smaller.
I couldn't read, but I guess,
It's just, it's just concerning what these costs that are coming in, they're gonna be, it's gonna be tough in the future for projects here.
This is a conversation that we've, looked at internally, and I've had with other counties just a couple weeks ago. The other counties were talking about projects and the prices on, do you bid them now? Do you hold off and bid in 6 months come fall? What do you do? And, pretty much every county is thinking that there's no benefit of waiting, rejecting bids and rebidding. If we wait till fall, if we bid then they might tell us pipe's not available till the fall of 2023. So we don't really see the prices coming back down by waiting.
It just means that when the budgets are put together, you're gonna reduce the volume of work that you're gonna be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it'll affect our state aid funds in the long run.
Unless the state kicks out more money towards.
They're gonna have to eventually with these prices.
No, they might not. I'll still make the motion to approve the project.
a motion
Second.
and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Brian.
Didn't ask for the opposed.
That's what?
He didn't ask for the opposed. Okay.
I guess you're next, Carol.
Well, there's really not a lot of update. I sent out some emails to various folks asking for pricing on certain things that are on the list, so you could, before the end of the month, make a decision. We have to submit our first report for the end of the month, so we'll do that the last meeting. What is the date of the last meeting? 26th. You did receive the information from Dewey regarding the Neighbors in Action.
Mhm.
Yes.
I don't know if that's something.
A week ago.
We talked about it and I checked into what it covers and it is part of the Healthy Community Partnership. And as I indicated in the information I sent out, this has several entities under the umbrella. And a lot of their funding is done through grants and dues paid by participants and so on, but they are trying to do more. And I said, well, you're doing okay. And well, we're doing okay. But I thought with the opportunity with ARPA to give them a boost, I didn't think they needed as much as we've given to other groups, but I'm looking at the $20,000 figure that I've proposed in the memo, so. But it would be going to Healthy Community Partnership, and they would give you a down. Their biggest, the one I listed first is their biggest part is the Neighbors in Action, and then Food Shelf comes second. And the theater, Neighbors Day, and then the therapy Touching Moments program. The others, the community garden is basically self-sustaining, but that is part of the umbrella.
They do have like 15 employees.
Yes. Mhm.
There's a motion to
Already
award.
got money, right?
Excuse me.
I guess if I was going to do it, I would probably make a designation that it goes to the Neighbors in Action and the Touching Moments, the therapy for the kids. You know, I don't know that the community garden or the community theater
Yeah, it'd be-
really. you know,
I was, when I was getting the information, the HCP is the
Yeah.
parent or the umbrella, but these are part of it, but yeah, either one.
And the Food Shelf, we did send a donation.
Mhm.
$1,000.
So
So you'd like to have it designated to those two?
I believe we probably should.
Can we do that? If we give an appropriation, I thought they could use it as they wish. Or
Well,
can we
but
say
they are,
that?
they are each subgroups. you know,
Yes.
Of that, so I think we'd be okay in
Okay.
qualifying it for the
Okay.
two
there are
that
two.
specifically
Right.
Yeah,
address.
okay.
Those two subgroups most closely align with the others that you've given to, so.
Okay.
Before you, if you were to do everything, then other places may.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, like, then I suppose the umbrella can, if they have these funds for these two, can help in the other areas that are not,
Right.
because, but I just listed it because
For
they are the
shifting their-
nonprofit.
They could shift their own funds.
There you go.
Right.
That's the.
All right, so we need a motion to, or we want to just do this as an agreement, or should we do a motion?
Gotta do motion.
Motion.
Somebody want to make a motion to give $20,000 to those two entities that Carol talked about?
I'll make it a motion to give $20,000 to the two entities. Say what they are, Carol? Or do we?
Mhm.
Which two?
Neighbors in Action,
Neighbors in Action and the Touching
Touching
Moments.
Moments, the therapy.
Make the motion for $20,000 to go towards Neighbors in Action and Touching Moments, as well as a 40,000, not to exceed $40,000 set aside for the La Crescent County Highway 6 project.
I thought you did 50.
Oh, we already did that,
Yeah.
but, okay, never mind, I'll pull that off then.
You threw me for a loop there.
Sorry.
50 was what we agreed for the bump outs, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry.
We already did that.
Already
Bump outs
We
is
already did
done.
that.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I made a note down below and I shouldn't have made it. Just the
No.
one
No, no,
20,000
just
to the two.
one.
This one total. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve $20,000 on ARPA funds for two entities that Carol talked about. Any more discussion?
So,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Anything else you want to talk about on ARPA?
Just that we, the 26th will be going through and kind of making designations on what we think will be staying for the funds that we haven't expended yet or committed.
we don't have to have every dollar
Specifically, we're
Designated
going- no, just
for the
a
report.
plan.
It's just, here's what
What's
we
the
got.
plan?
So have we gotten the second half payment?
June, I believe was when we'll come. I think we got our first in June last year.
Okay. Last week, we touched on the possibility of giving some to the libraries.
Or computers or something.
Right. So I don't know what,
Has anyone received the
No,
grace information? Yeah,
no.
This is one of my board updates that I was gonna ask about. when I get
but
to
we
it.
could talk about them too. So
All right. Now we're gonna go over to board chair updates. Updates I've been told about was that meeting for this building out here, Joe Welch and them. I think there might be a land tract action going on, switching land. Might be coming into the city instead. And then they can deal with it. But that's, Bob might know more about it than that. But that's about all I know.
Okay,
So we might not even have to deal with that if they switch the land.
okay.
So it'd be a city's problem.
We would need to make a,
well, this is all, we're not involved with this as a
Nope.
county, so.
They do from here on out, that's their business.
No, it still could come back to
Yeah,
us.
it could come back to us. I'm not saying, hey, it might not even leave us either. We might end up just making a decision on the 24th and it might not even get together on the land. It's a lot of hearsay right now. That's about all I got to talk about, I guess. Pretty quiet.
but don't we still have to make a decision on that conditional use permit, deny it if they do.
Well,
City.
When it comes
it's up
before
for,
us.
it's up for review by the
Okay.
by the county attorneys, and so we'll see what he comes up with.
Okay,
I don't think we should be discussing,
No.
we should be discussing possibilities out here. I mean, we
no,
gotta,
that's right,
we gotta talk about it when it comes before us, so.
that's right.
Wings up in the air right now. so.
Well, as of right now, you still have to make a decision by that date.
Yeah.
That's
nay.
what I was saying,
Yeah.
yeah.
Teresa?
I had an extension meeting last Thursday and it was actually a very short one because Rebecca, our 4-H person, is on leave right now. But our new director, our educator, gave a wonderful, enthusiastic report. She has really meeting with almost all the different ag groups in the county and both counties. Very busy. She's putting in 10-hour, 12-hour days. She lives in Fountain, so part of it is driving a lot too. But it was a very good meeting. The only big thing is October meeting will be a Zoom meeting, Eric.
Oh,
So you did bring that up because they're at a state conference there. I had a WinLAC meeting yesterday and the big thing, it got really long because they were working with MCIT about whether we want to be a joint powers entity, which is legally binding, whether we want to be a joint powers collaborative. We have to decide by June of 2023 because it has to be part of our grant application. So MCIT talked for almost a good hour.
Funny how insurance companies are like.
Yeah, was very, very involved, but two of the counties, including Olmsted and I don't know if it's Winona, which other county, but Olmsted for sure went with a joint powers collaboration because it's a lot easier. If they did something, a farmer can't come and sue them, they're just a collaborative. So that was quite a lengthy meeting. So next time I'll have to have Dewey go to it.
Yeah, I'll just have to start looking at that.
And I had to wear red today because I had a bad omen this morning before the meeting. There were 5 deer out my kitchen window and I went out and yelled at them and threw sticks at them, never moved. Oh, boy.
We see the sheep.
They just looked at me like, what?
You didn't know they're colorblind, did you?
That's what I thought. Even the stones didn't help.
The rocks didn't help either, huh?
I don't have anything else.
Bob?
Couple of things. I had a SEMCAC meeting last night in St. Charles. They have monthly meetings all over God's creation. We'll be doing a lot of driving around, but they're doing fairly well as far as SEMCAC. The biggest problem is the cost of meals has gone up. So it's having an effect as far as the budget, because, you know, they do tens of thousands of meals over the 11 county area, and it's a big part of the budget, and it's going up pretty dramatically. As far as Selco, when we talked about Selco in the libraries, haven't had any contact with Liz from Houston. She was going to get the information as far as the computer needs of the libraries, and that, you know, for the county, maybe it's going to take a little while. I'll go down and talk to her and see if she's got that information. And then I know that the state of Minnesota, there's 2 bills before the House and the Senate to add $2 million to the appropriations from the state to the libraries. $2 million is split between the 12 regions. And so it could amount to between $20,000 to $30,000 per library, but I don't know how, you know, they're going to split it up on the regions if the Twin Cities are going to get the match. You know,
Yeah.
hard to say. You don't know until it happens. So it's a little hard to negotiate that way. But I'd like to go and talk to her and then see if we can set up a negotiation time.
Could you wait until you get to see if that comes to fruition or
I
not?
want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'll call Davids and Miller and find out when that bill is gonna, if it's gonna come before and how long before it get to the governor. Last thing I wanted to ask about was with regard to the parking lot that we're looking at doing on the west side. Brian's put together plans. We've got a request to the city, and he's formalizing the request to the city to encroach on the right of way. The city had some ideas and whatnot, and they wanted to see the whole plan. But with regard to that, would the county be interested in acquiring an additional 20 to 25 feet from the south adjoining property if they're willing to park? I've already talked to the owner, and there is a willingness to deal with the county, but is the county interested in that? Would I have permission to get an appraisal of the 20-foot by 120-foot parcel? Just to see if we even want to go forward with it. By having that 20 to 25 feet, it would put a straight drive into the existing big parking lot and gain us 10 to 14 parking stalls in the west parking lot. The question is, how much would it cost? So I'd need to have an appraisal before we could do that. Should be a simple appraisal. It shouldn't be too expensive. But if we're not interested in it at all, then we'll just forget it.
Well, I think we should at least get an appraisal done. We're not committing to purchasing or anything like that. We won't know until we get the appraisal how much it's going to impact us. We know the impact would be making the parking lot more safe and maybe larger. And that's what we need to look at, is the convenience, safety, and without the appraisal, we can't make a good decision.
Thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I agree with what Dewey was saying.
That's where those trees are, those
Yeah.
arborvitaes or
Yeah.
whatever they are.
But what the appraisal is and what they want will probably be 2 different things.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
So then is it even worth
Does
it?
it make any difference?
A
lot of the
What
problem
do we
with-
think that 120 by 20 is worth? How much do you think?
We have no clue without appraisal.
That's right. We really. Is it a half acre, quarter acre?
No. No. Not
It's
even that.
24,000,
It's not that much.
120 by,
You're buying by the
2,400
square foot is
feet.
what you're
Yeah.
doing. A lot of the problem with the parking there on that parking lot is it's being used by
some
others
downtown businesses.
out of town business that's not, I mean, not out of town, but out of county business. It's being used by others too
Mhm.
there. But
But if we bought the 20 foot, that would eliminate the other two entrances right across from the bank, correct?
They're gonna be eliminated anyway. There's only gonna be a single entrance. It would just move it farther from the intersection if we acquired the 20 feet. And give us some extra parking and a straight shot into, instead of having an S hook into the big parking lot, it'd be a straight shot at the big.
Did you see that? That's it.
And one of the plan, well, again, this is way preliminary. Some of the preliminary plans talked about taking out some of that street and making more handicap accessible and things like that. So without having good information, we really can't make a plan yet. And appraisals is part of that,
Mhm.
making those plans.
Well, I'm in favor of getting appraisal. Get it.
that's fine.
Yes, me
Get
too.
started, so at least you know what
I-
the land's worth.
Yep, me too.
And like Eric said, there's gonna be a difference between what's
If we say it's
worth
worth
and what's
less, you might
what's
want
wanted. We'll have to discuss.
So can we do that on consensus or is that gonna take board action to get appraisal?
I think we can do it as consensus, getting an appraisal.
When we're talking $200-300, I don't know.
And then we should be able to just do
I can
by
see-
consensus.
Yeah. If it's not, we're not purchasing, we're
No.
just getting information.
So the consensus is to go ahead with getting an appraisal.
Mhm.
So. What do we talk about the community meeting that we had? So that's all I got.
Last Thursday had a water plan meeting. It's the first one we had in a while because the other one got canceled, so it was a lot of catch up. They talked about the push up pond programs and some of the new stuff that's coming about for clean water programs. And Brian was there, and Amelia was there for a little bit and gave their kind of updates we hear at land use and stuff too, so. Katie was there. That was her first meeting. So the problem, they're still looking for members to be on this committee. And they've called around and asked quite a few people and have been declined. So I don't know what else they can do to try to, and I've asked a few people too, and they don't, there's not committed. They don't want to. They just don't feel they have the time. So that's a challenge for that committee. So,
You talking the soil and water committee? or-
it's a water plan
Okay.
committee. It's not soil and water, it's separated, but they have a new NRSCS director. Gary Larson's retired. They have a new guy that just started. He's from Wisconsin. And so, but he wasn't there, so we didn't get to meet him.
This isn't the one plan one.
Nope, it's different. This is the water plan committee. It's not the river watershed. It's different.
But it's still through Houston County,
Well, yeah,
for Houston County.
yep. We meet 4 times a year.
Is this the organization that would make a determination with regard to the ARPA money that we dedicated over that one?
No.
Different, okay.
And then Thursday night, I didn't go to the extension. I went as much as I'd like to have gone to that instead, but I went to the Mount Prairie. And folks at Valley High had a citizens meeting with the assessor's office. Luke and Austin and David Firehelm were there. Lee was there too and took names and stuff. a lot of people. I'd say there was 50, 60 people there. And it was a good meeting, really. You could tell in the beginning it was a little tense, and you could tell they were ready to let her rip. And so, I mean, I felt I should step in and say, hey, this is the situation. This is state policy. This is not county policy. And if anybody needs to hold their feet to the fire, it should be me, because I'm on the county board. We set the budget. We're the ones asking for the amount of pie for your taxes. The assessed value is it's a whole different situation. So, and then Luke proceeded to conduct the rest of the meeting and explain things out on a flow chart of how all this works. And they had a better understanding of how it all worked and could ask clarifying questions. And I think by the end of the meeting, I think everybody was satisfied in how it went, and they were all actually they're glad that we had the meeting. So, and Mountain Prairie's not having a Board of Equalization meeting because they don't have any judges that qualify. None of their supervisors got the training. So this is kind of like that kind of a meeting, but they get to come to the county direct because of the township doesn't have that. So.
And they all understood that they can still go and contest the valuation of their property and have a
Yep, and they were told about the rebate program. Anything over $100, and there's like 2 sets of qualifications for that. And so they were told about that. And so, and the fact that there was six comparative sales sold in Mount Prairie Township, which triggered the state to review it. And that's where they had to come up with this new value, especially for Valley High, because 4 of them were from Valley High. So.
Valley High was kind of set apart from the rest of the township. Wasn't it?
Well, and that's why, from the state point of view. Yeah. So.
The $100 you talked about, that's the property tax refund if your taxes go up over a certain percentage.
Yep.
But that still falls on us as the county board as far as what we set for a
Levy. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, people automatically assume, oh, my values went up this much. That means our tax. No. So I had Luke explain the tax capacity rate. And after they got to see that, they had a better understanding of how that works. So
I don't think it was the state that said we should designate certain areas like Valley High. I think that was the assessor's office decision to do that.
not from what I was told.
I think it might have been a suggestion. The state just tells us, don't they, how our values sales and where we're at.
Mhm.
I think Lucas kind of took that and expanded on it to try and lessen the burden on some of the.
Well,
Older
it's
areas.
not less, it's to make it a more fair system,
Right.
Yep.
you know? Because, you know, the rest of the areas is 20%. In Valley High, they were way undervalued according to the comparative sales. So they had 4 sales there that all went for more than what they were valued at, quite a bit more. So,
And so the Valley High was a 50% increase instead of 20.
right.
But the people that got a 50% increase can still go to the assessor and have it reassessed.
And they took, when they had a list there of the people that came, they could come back and say, I want mine looked at again, okay, and look for mistakes, that sort of thing. It's not necessarily the value they can change. They could look for mistakes at something that's described in the description that's not correct, you know, whether it's a 2-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom or something like that, or anything else, so.
I think it'd be very beneficial for a commissioner to go to each one of the Board of Equalization meetings on the local level, just to explain that it does depend on our levy, their taxes, not the assessed value.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing for people to understand.
They like both ways. They like the value to be up
Mhm.
when I'm selling, They don't want it up when I'm taxing.
Well, and if you're remortgaging too, you like your value higher too, you know? It works everywhere, you know, it's just the way it works.
Yeah, so that's all I got, but just to touch on that library thing, and Denise Becker kind of brought this up too, but the way Liz presented this to us is that they're comparing what the city per capita is versus the rural. And I kind of disagree with that comparison a little bit because it's a city library. It's budgeted by the city. The employees are paid by the city. And so I look at what the county appropriation is a supplement to the city libraries. It shouldn't be a rural versus city comparison. So, because like Denise says, so how would actually this money that we use to appropriate to the Selco library, that's taxpayer money from the whole county, correct?
Not from those cities. that have-
So how does that get separated out from the city?
This-
How is that general
Okay, so
fund?
The library levy for the appropriation is part of the county levy.
Mhm.
We have general revenue, we have road and bridge, we have human services.
Right.
We have debt service, and we have library.
Right?
We do list it out separately. So in Caledonia City, because they levy for library, we don't charge that library rate to those residents because they're already paying.
So we have so that appropriation is a library levy?
Yeah.
I thought it was just,
Well, it's done that way. It shows as a separate line so that it can be not charged to all the taxpayers because the city people pay the city their portion.
So we're not double
So if we
dipping the
look
city
at-
people.
I mean, I don't know how that's done because it's general fund money.
Calculations, because when we enter rates, we say that the city of Caledonia has library, so don't take that amount from those people. Like my house in town, I pay library to the city, I don't pay library to the county. And I may be able to show that on a.
Well, anyway, I just, I'm still believe that the appropriation is a supplement to the cities for their library. So like when we get told that we're not paying our fair share, I don't know if, it probably looks that way, but the fact that we could use ARPA here to help defer some of these costs, like the computers, maybe some other things, that would be a better route to go than, instead of increasing the budget 160,000 that they were asking.
Which was an error to begin with on the sheets that we got from Selco, that the appropriation was what they put in a 167
183
and we are
versus
actually.
187.
Yeah, 183 is what we're actually getting. Plus, they didn't include La Crescent Township, puts in 3,000 extra just for a tax on the township. So,
I
Crescent
think I'd be,
Township pays 3,000 to the city of La Crescent.
yes, to the.
Plus they are assessed.
Yes,
in their Abby ask.
yes,
Yeah.
plus they're assessed with only 1, 2.
I think that's the only township that does that. I don't know of any other township that does that.
Well, at your annual meeting, we always have the fair board come for an extra, appropriation in the township and the
Sit up
historical
there.
society, even though we do pay toward the historical society too.
So just an example, I just brought this up quick. So here's my parcel in the city of Caledonia. And this is the county portion of the tax on my parcel. And you can see there's no library there. here's a parcel out in Winnebago Township, and there you can see the library portion of the levy.
Okay.
So in town, the ones that have a library levy, it's done in our tax calculations,
Part of the-
not to charge.
Part
it
of the
again.
city's general fund levy.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yep,
see,
Yeah.
here's mine in town. I don't pay levy in the county portion. In the township, there is.
mhm.
So that's how it's separated out for those.
And the trouble with that is, goes to what Dennis was saying, that
Is
Mhm.
paying
he's paying a lot more
So here's
versus
the,
somebody that might have
here's
a
the
1 acre building site
Right,
and their
Here's
house
the
is only
township
paying a
parcel.
little bit.
yeah.
The
Here's
bigger
the
the
city
property, the
parcel.
higher the value, the more they're paying
Because-
towards the library.
because that's part of their. city.
So is that where they're getting those figures from?
They would.
So
It's based on the value,
here's in the city of
the
Caledonia.
value
There's no
of
library in the
everything it
county
comes up
portion.
with, but it's a general fund
In
levy
the
in the city.
township.
It's a special levy in the township.
So you're paying.
The thing is, they
Right,
talk
so-
about it like it's split per
Mhm.
capita.
So the amount that the
Not
county
Exactly.
actually
right.
split
Yep.
per
is
capita.
put separately.
And they're
so that we
already
can do
paying
that,
it.
So we're not charging it out to everyone.
And
It's
that's.
not really a.
Farmers are getting that.
I know, I know. Mhm. Yep.
It's just way up.
It was.
The best thing we did was-
I agree. I'm glad I went to that meeting. Is that
Well, back to
really
our
good?
discussion.
Well, see, that's what I'm getting at, Craig, is that
Fair share, it depends on what they want.
exactly. So we're competing against the city here. Like
Being placed against.
we're placed against the city, right?
Right.
And so, and then the fact that these are city employees, we don't set their salary. That has to be done through the city, not through,
Or through the board.
right?
It's like she said, some boards are independent of the city. The city gives money to the board. Caledonia's that way.
Yeah.
Caledonia allocates a certain amount of money to the library board decides. So if they want to give all the money to the employees and not buy a book, that's the library board. Houston's a little bit different on the way they're run. I mean, it's not-
Yeah, yep, that's different. But like, I just heard what Allison was talking about per capita. That's
Mhm.
the fact that it's per capita. I mean, where are they getting their figures from for, rural population versus city?
Actually, it's on the office, the state demographer's office.
Yeah.
But they're just dividing it per per capita,
Mhm.
but really,
They're dividing their total budget.
right,
Really, they're taking the amount that the city is contributing, dividing it by the number of people in that place, and then they're saying, well, you should be paying more.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem fair to me.
And I'll question the Spring Grove one,
The $80.
because if I remember correctly, they get some money through the Spring Grove Telephone Co-op.
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
You're right on that.
So subsidized. So is it truly $80 or is it $80, but subtract how much the Spring Grove Telephone Company pays?
I'd like to
Just
see
towards
towards
it.
budgets before we give them any more money.
I'd go with the ARPA funds to do a
One time
get
injection
caught up with
for
your
computers
equipment.
and stuff like
And we
that.
gotta wait until this $2 million of additional funding goes, so we know how
Yes.
much.
Yes.
I
Right,
mean, that could equate to $30,000
exactly.
per library. If you take 2 million, divide by 12, divide by the 5 libraries.
Mhm.
$2 million divided by 12, divided by 52 libraries in region 12, divided by 5. Could amount to $30,000. But I don't know how much goes to the Twin Cities versus.
Well,
Right.
that's gonna be the kicker.
Right. And in all this discussion,
Mhm.
it still means we support our libraries.
Oh, heck
yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to catch grief that we're not doing that. I just want to, this is the hard work part of it, not the gamesmanship part of it. This is the hard work part of it, trying to how to figure out how to do it. So,
And we do have to watch our levy.
yes. And I made that statement clear in Mount Prairie. I said, we as a board we know that the values are out there where they're at. We need to do our best to try to keep our budget in line because we know this is gonna be coming to effect here next in 2023, so.
Look at the negotiations and the end result of
Right.
unions and
Yep.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah, that's,
Go ahead, Dewey. I got something else I want to bring up afterwards, so. But
well, I just got a couple of things, the community services meeting this morning. Next week, they're gonna be coming in, giving us information about the economic assistance part of their work and, letting us know what's going on. And then by the 26th, he plans to have some firmer numbers as to the EDMS and some of the other plans he wants to incorporate. He, John reiterated, the space study is going to be important. That we wish that we would continue looking at that, to figure out what we can do to improve. So there's, with the loss of a couple of people, there'll be some changes going on too that he'll keep us abreast of, but the COVID is taking its toll, both on personnel and on people in general. Again, reiterating that next Tuesday, I believe it should be in this week's paper, about the no wake zone deal at La Crescent on West Channel. It'd be the 19th at 6 o'clock at night in the evening at community building. That's the fire department building, basically, in La Crescent. So, and we're going to set it up to have it available Zoom wise also. So if people want to listen in on that. And that's about it. Listened last night, City of La Crescent, as I think I said it before, most of you got here, we looked at a 25 to 30% overrun of our estimate. They were complaining at a 15% overrun on a $1 million project, but it's one of those things that unfortunately inflation is taking its toll on us. About it.
the other thing I wanted to ask about is, it's been a while since I've been commissioner that I've ever seen department head reviews, performance reviews.
We used to do them once a year,
Yep.
each department. They actually liked it because they sat down with the commissioners,
Yep.
told what the projects they're working on, what, how it affected their budgets, and what they did as a department head.
Yep. I think it'd be a good idea to get those started again. We've got our, negotiations are done, so our
Mhm.
contracts are in for 3 years, so HR was busy doing that. So I think it's something we as a personnel committee can maybe get the ball started on that and get some of those lined up.
That's gonna be my question. Is this the entire board or personnel?
Well,
It used to be
I
that the
I think the
entire board.
personnel should get it going and then they could come in front of the whole board. I think.
right, and there's a clause where we can have a closed session to do performance reviews. Department heads. Yep.
It's qualified.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
It is a good thing.
I've only known of 2 being done since I've been here that I know of, and that's been a while ago, so.
We have a better handle on everything if we had the meetings.
So Greg and I we'll get together with HR and start getting that stuff going, if that's okay for you guys.
We used to do them right after a regular board meeting as a closed session. You met with the
At the
engineer
end of
one week, then the surveyor the next week, the HR.
That's a review of the department head as an employee,
Right.
not of the department.
No,
of
no,
what's going on.
no, this is
This is
strictly,
the employee
Exactly.
aspect.
Department head over.
There used to be a set form, and I'm sure Tess would have that, of questions that they each had to fill out. And then we got a copy of it, and then we reviewed. it.
well, yeah, I think some of the procedure was that they do a self-evaluation and then
Right.
we would have our own,
Right.
right? All right.
So if it's a closed session, is the self-evaluation public or private?
I think it was
I'm
private.
just curious. as
I don't
far
know.
as the-
I'd have to find that out.
It can be a closed session, but the employee or the department head can request it if it's open.
Right,
Right,
that's always there.
but if they're filling out a form for that closed session, that remains private, then,
I mean, the
the
self-evaluation.
self-evaluation.
I don't know about that.
It'd be nice if you could do that after you conclude all your other business and cut out of here.
Yes, that's what we
Don't
would
wanna
do.
wait for an hour and come back and hear your.
We could do it
No.
afterwards. That'd be all
It
right.
was always done afterwards.
And actually, I think the last time it was the department had filled out their self-evaluation form. The commissioners each had a form to fill out with, criteria, and then it was the personnel committee that met with each of the department heads in their office.
No, we used to be the full board.
Not the last time.
Oh, not the last time. Used to be the full board because I remember Bev being very vocal to the whole board. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a good thing, but
And the elected officials,
they don't have to have one actually, but they did.
No, not the elected, no.
But
Because
they
they're held
did, but some
accountable
of
by
them
the.
did.
they could if they wanted.
If you volunteer.
All right, any closing public comment?
Like real much action today.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Yep.
Opposed?
Lightning fast motion.